Hey everybody, this is Carl White broadcasting from the secret headquarters here in the Mortgage Marketing Animals / Freedom Club, and you're listening to Loan Officer Freedom, #1 podcast in the world today for loan officers. And thanks to you fine people for giving us all those great ratings, and we really appreciate that. So, all right, so I got a special guest today, and really looking forward to been looking forward to this one for a while. So Scott Valins is located in New York right now, but you run an interesting, and you're a broker. What's the name of your company, Scott?
So the name of my company is Scott Capital Group, but I'm in the middle of launching a new mortgage brokerage that's called Go Rascal.
Dude, okay. Now you just threw a zinger on me there. So now we gotta let me add to my list of questions. Tell me about Go Rascal. So you operate a business different than some that you have a home, and make sure I got this right, but you have a home in Brooklyn, in New York, and you run your business out of there. And then you also have a home, is it San Diego?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. And so you operate your business out of there too, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I built my book of business out in California when I got into the industry, and then moved back to New York years later and kept that business going. And so I get back to California as much as I can. Not so much in the last couple of years, but yeah, several times a year for long stretches at a time.
Now, when you operate your business out of there as a mortgage brokerage business, do you lend in both states, or do you?
Yeah,
Yes.
So yeah, certainly.
All right. So you live in New York and you write loans in New York, but half of the year you're in California. And when you're in California, your New York people still call you, still do your lending there. Does your clientele and your referral partners know that you're flipping back and forth, literally from one side of the country to the other?
To a degree, they do. In fact, I used to have, I have a cell phone number that's a 323 number, which is an LA-based number, and my landline is a New York number. And I used to be insecure about merging them together and having one number. And one of the things I learned in the Freedom Club was to kind of shed all your insecurities and work through them. And ultimately, my cell phone now forwards to my work line. So slowly but surely, the people that only like to call me on my cell are moving over, and I really just use my 212 number. And I don't, maybe a deal or two or a relationship or two dropped off because I'm cross country, but for the most part, we haven't seen any impact on promoting that. New York's headquarters still have that LA location, but it's the 212 number that's getting the calls, and calls are going out from.
Nice. And on your brokerage business, so you're the primary broker, but you do your own production. Do you have loan officers that work with you, Scott?
I do. Yeah, I do now. And that's kind of part of where we're moving. So I started as a producer and a broker owner. I've only ever been in the broker channel, which I think is pretty unique for someone who's been in the mortgage business for almost 19 years. A lot of people jumped out, 08, 09, 2010, people that stayed in the business, moved over to the banker model. Broker channel was on the ropes a bit, but I stuck it out. And I got lucky to some degree. I didn't have full conviction that broker channel is going to be fine and we're going to survive. I love the channel, and I still do. So I've only ever been a broker. And I really, until about 18 months ago, my only focus was largely my book of business. I've always had a handful of loan officers that have worked under me that already had books of business that I became friends with from networking in the industry. And they said, I'd rather come work with you than where I'm currently at, but I already know what I'm doing. I just want to hang my hat at a place, or my shingle at a place where, I can trust I'm going to get paid and pricing's good. But I didn't really lend a ton of support around staff and processors, whatnot. Some here and there, but that was not my goal. My goal was laser focused on being a mega producer, as you like to call it, which was just building out my book of business with tons of support under me, processors, loan partners, et cetera.
So, just for what we're going to, pardon me, what we're going to be talking about today is scaling up and scaling the business, and you're a poster child for that. But give us some numbers, just a kind of a where are you now? What kind of and let's talk, I don't know, units, I guess. What
Sure.
what kind of kind of units are you doing these days?
Yeah, we're doing between like 70 and 90 units a month. That's my personal book of business, which is now, frankly, being shared a bit with some brand new LOs to the industry. Right. I imagine we'll get into that in a bit about scaling. But yeah, that's really my book of business on its own, in that 70 to 90 range with a goal of 100.
And then the loan officers that you work with, they're in addition to this 70, 90. So
Yeah,
dude,
that's right.
is all right. So let me, so dude, if how long ago did we meet?
It was 7 years ago.
So yeah, I knew it's been a while. So dude, if 7 years ago, future you would have come back and said, dude, you're going to be doing an interview. And as we're recording this, so I'm going to timestamp this. This is July 14th, 2021. That if the future you went back to you 7 years ago, said, dude, in July 14th of 2021, you're going to close between 70 and 90 loans, like not just a month, but like month after month after month. And it's going to be growing fast that, like, could you have even fathomed at that point?
Probably not, because at the time I was really like a 1 or 2 man shop, just my business. I hadn't joined the Freedom Club yet, and I think I had one processor slash kind of compliance person, and I couldn't envision bringing on more people to support that growth. And we all know you can't do 70 to 90 loans a month by processing your own loans. So no way,
Yeah,
no
I
chance.
always like those people that always like those people say, well, it's no fair. He has help. It's like, dude,
Totally.
yeah, just like Ford Motor Company has help, just like Apple Computer has help. Yeah, it's a real business. So let's talk about this the scaling up. So like when you're scaling up, like more or less, like what were you closing back 7 years ago, like in units? Do you remember more or less?
What was that? 2014, 5 to 10,
All right, so which is kind of, we'll call that,
maybe.
yeah, we'll call that a standard, somewhere. I mean, there's a group of loan officers that, like one here and there, but the ones that's, really dived in and doing it full time and been doing it for a couple of years, they got ramped up a little bit. 5, 10 loans is kind of somewhat typical, right? Give or
Mhm.
take. So going from 5 to 10 to 70 to 90, dude, what is that even? A lot of people sitting there going, I can't even envision 20 or 25, much less 70, 80, like 90 of personal production. How do you do that? How do you scale that up?
Yeah, I mean, it's hiring. You have to add help. I mean, when I was doing 5 to 10, and I like to think like I built, my book of business like one brick at a time, word of mouth referrals, and slow kind of organic growth. I didn't go to 5 to 10 and then 50 and kind of plateau there. In fact, when I kind of tell my story, every year from 2010, let's say when the market came back through this year, uh, not consequential, I had sequential better years, except for one. I think 17 to 18 was a drop off, but 18 was still better than 16 kind of thing. So
Yeah.
one little bump in the road. And so it was a slow build. But eventually, for me to be able to, work relationships, organic ones that I had built, past clients asking for business and referrals, agents that I was working with for the first time, be able to kind of go after them in an appropriate way, I had to free up time. Right. I couldn't process my loans anymore. And eventually I couldn't even kind of manage the entire sales process up front, needed kind of a sales assistant. And so to me, it just completely came down to hiring. And frankly, there was resistance. Again, when I met you and started learning the practices of the Freedom Club, there was a lot of resistance. I didn't think, anyone could take things off my plate. And I was so nervous about, slip ups, mistakes, losing relationships, losing deals. I was very consumed with the individual transaction, which I respect. When you're doing 5 to 10 loans a month, if you lose two, that's 20 to 40% of your book of business. But once you get over that hump, you're doing a bit more than that. You're just
All right.
not.
So,
Yeah.
so let's go back to a second. How do you get over that? Like, how do you, how do you go from that, hey, everybody wants to talk to me, to, gosh, I got to have help. And so there has to be somebody else has to talk. When I'm closing 70, 80, 90 loans per month,
Mhm.
you can't talk to anybody because you wouldn't have time to do that. So how did you learn to let go of that and trust your help that they're having the same conversation that you would be having? How do you do that?
I got a coach. I mean, I'll be honest, I got a coach that just drilled it into me, kind of what, bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. I can't remember how frequent we were doing it back then, but ultimately, you just got to test the waters, right? Hiring's hard. You got to find the right people or person in this case. But once you do, and you just committed to doing that, you see it once or twice, you're like, wow, this is, it's not rocket science, really. It's a complex industry for sure. Once you find a person and that's your person, everything opens up from there. So I just had to take that leap. It was blind. And I had support and whatnot. But it was hard. There was resistance. I was scared. I still am today as I'm scaling. There's certain relationships that I have to let go of, like some of the strongest ones, when I don't want to be originating as much, and same kind of fears, bigger fears, different fears, but I got the support and I'm on my way.
So what is that? So as you're scaling up to these numbers, like, what was the one pivotal person that you added to the team? And I don't even mean necessarily a name in this case, but what was there like one pivotal position that when we added this particular position, like it really took off for us?
I mean, at first it was a processor, right? Because I was processing my loans, and that is time consuming. There was so many people I wanted to reach out to, and referrals I wanted to work appropriately. And remember, when you're not doing a ton of loans, your book of business and your past database isn't that big at first. So you really you're limited as far as that's concerned, and so you want to make sure you squeeze it as best as you possibly can, because every new referral and relationship that you're introduced to can just multiply in the future down the road. And so at first it was a processor, and then it became there's actually someone I hired who was a little bit older and didn't have real estate or mortgage experience. And she kind of became kind of a more of like an emotional support person for me in the business. Just by nature, she was sitting next to me every day, because she wasn't directly like in the business, wasn't ever jaded, very kind of simple. A lot of lessons I got from her that ultimately helped me take those next leaps. So it was a surprise person. I hired her to help me out with some file stacking, compliance, post-closing stuff, and maybe a little bit of recruitment. But it was a relationship that we built that taught me some things.
So your first person that you brought on was a processor. Mm-hmm. And what was this, when you brought this first person on, were y'all working under the same roof, or was it remote back then? I know it now, working remote is no big deal. Back then we didn't have all these things that we have now. Were you remote back then too?
Same roof. Yep. Then it was. Yep. Side by side. It was someone that was working for a retail bank, which is very prevalent in New York. So plenty of applicants there. I was a little bit hesitant to hire them because I really wanted someone with broker wholesale experience, but they had the right skill set, the right aptitude is really a word I've been using a lot lately with my team, is especially if you're looking outside of necessarily mortgage experience. Maybe it's just so expensive to hire in this current environment. Mm-hmm. Aptitude's key, right? And so he did have mortgage experiences on the retail channel, but he had that aptitude, and he opened it up for me. And then I continued to hire more processors. Before I got a loan partner or an LOA or anything like that, I had so much bandwidth from opening up processing that it wasn't before 3-4 processors, junior processors, I built out that team, that I finally was like, okay, let's I'm tapped out and I need some sales support to help me at the top of the funnel.
So so we're those of you listening to this podcast, I'm also streaming this live on Facebook, and a dear friend of ours, Mark Brewer, just asked a great question, and he said, is Scott personally originating, or does he have licensed team members? So I think I don't think that's an or question. So is your name the one that's on the 1003?
So it's a great question. So in the last 12 months, I went from originating, all of my loans to slowly peeling back as we added loan officers that were cut from the same cloth as me. So that was, again, like a fearful thing, is like, I'm handing over like, layup deals, clients that want to work with me again, and I'm turning them over to loan officers. It had to be a seamless transition that they were like, this guy's just as good as you, if not better, with follow up and all that. So I hired a bunch. A few of them have mortgage experience, but my best ones had no mortgage experience. And it allowed me to groom them exactly the way I want to. They came in with no preconceived notions or anything like that. And so right now, I actually can't really originate because my license is transitioning over to the new. I'm actually switching. So part of my scaling is that I'm creating a brand new company, a brand new brokerage with a new brand, a new business partner, all that stuff. And so I technically can't originate, but if my licenses were in place right now, I'd be originating less than 10 loans a month.
Okay. So now it's your team. So it's not really loan officers per se, because your effort still generates the leads, and then you hand these leads to what most people would identify as a loan officer assistant that's taking those. Is that correct, or are these loan officer assistants out beat streets getting new business also?
So both, actually. So you're right. I'm still generating the leads almost in like a kind of more of a passive manner, right? We have systems set up for calling the past database and engaging with realtors. But if we talk about the realtor relationships for now, I've slowly handed over that relationship. And now these loan officers are actually calling on the realtors and taking over the relationship. And it's been phenomenal because I've got the right people in place. And some of the feedback from realtors are like, they're more available than you've been, and we've never had a problem with you. And like, that's just an incredible win for me. And they're out there going and getting their own book of business slowly but surely, through some of the relationships I've teed up for them, and some of what they're doing, like anyone does when you're kind of bootstrapping, getting into the mortgage business.
Yeah. So you said something a few minutes ago, and I want to. It's something. I'm not going to say it's unique to the industry, but it's certainly not typical. Is that you're hiring sometimes people with zero experience in the mortgage industry, and you've been able to scale up of that. Which I'm just going to go on record, man. That if somebody asked me, is that the way to do it? I would tend to say no. You need to hire experienced people. But dude, it's hard to tell somebody that's closing 70, 90 loans a month, dude, you're doing it all wrong. So apparently that's not the all wrong way. So tell me how that works. Like where do you find these people, and how do you train them well enough that they can run with the ball and apparently not dropping it enough to hurt your business? For it's helping the business because they're more available. So what does that look like? Like what do you like? Where do you find these people, and what does their training look like?
Yeah, so I actually attribute it to the two key hires that I made in the last 12 months when I made the decision to really scale my business. And, I appreciate the accolades for closing a lot of loans. And I absolutely recognize that it's a lot of loans, but we have goals of closing a lot more than that and becoming like, a more mid-sized mortgage company that does, several hundred loans a month, of course, that I will largely have very little involvement with. And so I hired a COO and a head of sales, and it wasn't people who had already been in the mortgage business, because most people that have been in the mortgage business, if you're like me, you're an operator, you're an originator. Sure, some of us are built naturally to have a bunch of other skill sets, and you can become CEOs and run sales teams and all that. But a lot of us are just solo sales guys, and that's what we're best at doing. And frankly, I think I can wear a lot of hats, but I'm a very good originator. I'm a good salesperson. I'm a good follow-up, bedside manner communicator, all pertaining to the mortgage sale, which I will also say, kind of a side conversation, but I really think the mortgage industry is a processing industry, not so much a sales industry, because it's a commodity and the consumer is already looking for a mortgage. So you're not convincing someone to buy a product like a B2B SaaS software kind of thing. They're in the marketplace and you've got to convince them to work with you. And mortgage rates are commodities. Yes, they can vary from shop to shop, but we're all playing in the same sandbox. So I think, the processing efforts start right out of the gate, right? From just, especially when you scale and you hand them off to either an LOA who's going to gather docs and communicate. That's, to me, that the processing, it's sales, but the processing is already really starting there. And so anyway, so I hired two guys. My best friend from growing up built and sold a tech company, like the kind that you read online, like started from nothing, sold it to a big conglomerate, made a lot of money. And he told some of his top guys at the company that, hey, like I sold it, but I'm going to take care, and I'm moving on, but I'm going to take care of you. You helped me create this thing and build wealth. And so I'm going to find your next roles for you. I'm going to be your mentor. And being the best friend that he is, he actually came to me and said, you're running this mortgage brokerage, you're doing well. Have you ever thought of scaling? This was all him, truly scaling. And remember, I wasn't doing 80 to 90 loans 18 months ago. I was doing really 20 to 30. So he actually put it in my head. He's like, go for it. Sure, ton of risk involved, but I can probably tee up some really good relationships for you. And it's on you to convince them to come join the business with you. But if they do, they're going to be perfect for the roles. And this was my new COO, David, and my head of sales, we call him head of revenue, Paul. And they came from an environment where they went from zero to selling a company. And Paul was like the main sales manager. He knew how to recruit, interview, hire, and train salespeople. And David knew ops, systems, CRMs, all sorts of stuff like that, right? Modeling. He has a financial background, investment banking. So I don't want to say I was gifted these guys by any means. I worked to convince them to join me, but I wouldn't have thought as big probably enough to make those two guys my key hires. But I think it answers your question, because Paul knew that, when I hired Paul, it was almost mandatory that my model was going to be inexperienced people. He didn't want to manage LOs who came in with their own ways and stuff. He's like, we're going to do this by bringing in people, and I'm going to build a whole sales program, and we're going to use outside training modules. And yeah, it's taking a long time, and it will continue to take It's a longer path to get there. But so far, the few guys that we've brought in and we've been able to train, and we're a little bit smaller now, so they're getting a lot more hands-on training, have paid dividends. They're both closing 20 plus units a month, 7 months into the mortgage business with no mortgage experience. Yes, they're getting my business. Don't get me wrong, but the clients love them, and nothing's falling off.
And without question, that builds some loyalty, because you brought them in and showed them a new way to do things and make an income that likely they never made before. And not everybody, but any decent person would appreciate somebody that helps them out and changes their life. Most people, not everybody, but most people that are decent will appreciate that. And it might not buy you a lifelong thing, but certainly, there's some solid deposits that you made in their life, right? And so cool. So the question begs. I got two questions I want to ask, and I just don't want to. Let me write it down here, because I don't want to come back to that. I want to come back to that. So what do you say to the person that says, all right, so normally, I mean, dude, that's remarkable that you've gone up from, what would you say, like 20, 30 loans a month to 70, 90 loans a month in the last 18 months. That's a remarkable growth. And what I heard you say is you did that by having assistants that are now forming those are continuing those relationships that you developed. What do you say to the person who says, well, wait a minute, what if that LOA, that assistant starts thinking, well, I'm the one that makes all this happen, and I don't need Scott, and I'm now talking to all these referral partners, and if I go, they'll go with me. Gee, I think I might go because I might make an extra buck if I did that. Maybe so, maybe not. But what do you say to that? What do you say to the loan officer that hesitates having somebody else talk to their clients because they're afraid that the allegiance of the referral might change?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a degree, it's something to consider for sure. Especially when you see kind of the rapid growth that some of these new people have had, and we've thought about, have they worked hard enough to get to this level? And they certainly work their tails off. But I think at the end of the day, one of the things, the way we run our business and the way we train them to run their business is to be, customer first, world-class service, bedside manner, all those good things. And, I think there's definitely like a gratitude element in there. So could there be some bad seeds that come in and kind of pull the wool over our eyes and, and go walk away and try to take these relationships with them. Yeah, but I think they kind of know that, building a career in the mortgage business is typically slow growth and requires putting on long hours and hard work. And that ultimately would probably come back to bite them at the end of the day if they tried to pull something like that. There is no doubt, though, Carl, that if and when some of these people leave, they're going to have earned some of these relationships. And we intend to spread out the relationships that we tee up for these new loan officers pretty far and wide, so that you don't have two guys that have 25 agent partners. And so almost to the point where if they walk, and we will be so grateful. Again, I just mentioned gratitude. If I get 5 great years out of someone who comes in and just gives it their all, that's okay. It's an abundance mentality. They can have some of those relationships. They sure as heck nurtured them more than I will have over those 5 years, and we'll be on to the next one, and we'll replace them, and there's more relationships to build. So
that's a great answer. So your answer is, I'll just go get more. And it's that abundance mindset. And I know we're both firm believers in the good old karma thing, and it all works out. Yeah, I've always thought, like, if you're afraid to grow because, some of my team members might go do their own gig, it's like, well, if you don't bring them on, for sure you won't close anymore. And if you bring them on and for a year or 2 or 5 or 10 or 22, whatever that number is, you do, well, then you benefit for that period of time. And if something, that's like having I don't know, you got a goose that lays golden eggs. You go, well, I don't want that, because what if the goose dies? So no, don't give me the goose to begin with. Dude, cash in the golden eggs while you can, and if maybe nothing will happen, if something does happen, well, you had it for a period of time. So I'm the same believer in that. Hey, so look, here's the question I know that's in a lot of people's heads right now is, how do you generate? So is most of your lead generation online or offline?
Great question. It's almost all offline until recently. We recognize that, we have to bring in some new models and some new kind of paid online lead gen stuff to juice this thing. But those 70, 90 loans, and that's what I said to, my 2 new guys coming in, is I said, we're a 70 to 100 unit shop, not without your guys' efforts, because we built a recruiter. And like I said, Paul helped, we are bringing loan officers who have no experience and fit our pay model and everything. But that's baseline. Like, that's what we are. That's what I built over 18 years, and you guys helping me squeeze the heck out of it. But for us to go up from there, we have to invest in other avenues. So
and
that's what we're doing now.
I agree with that. 'Cause I recorded a podcast with do you know Jeff Zimfer? Do you know who Jeff is?
I don't.
So really cool guy. I'll hook you up with him. Super cool guy. So anyway, I interviewed him on a podcast here earlier, and he talked about the hybrid loan officer, which is where you online, offline. Don't say which. Do both, right? Use it, because they both work, and then when you combine them together, it works even better. Like it's a symbiotic relationship kind of thing. So
completely.
I like that. So,
I mean, if you win a piece of business from a paid opportunity, that's the same. You do the right thing for them, and they love the experience, which is everyone's goal. They're a client just like your other client. Now they're a client that you're going to hit up for referrals, and the realtor that you worked on that deal, because maybe it was a purchase deal and you got to work on that, is now a realtor that was very impressed by your efforts, and you have the opportunity to add that realtor and nurture that relationship. So it doesn't really matter where the closed business comes from. Eventually it's part of your database.
Yeah, I like that. So on this understanding about this hybrid model, so to date, currently, most of it's been with the offline, or what we'll call it old school. I'm like coffee appointments and asking for the business and just calling on agents kind of thing. So on those, if you're getting like referred leads, we close about 25%. Like if I want to close 10 loans, I need about 40 leads. Does yours about the same as that, more or less?
Yep, more or less. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're closing, let's just say middle of the road 80, that means you're getting 240 leads. So if we're closing 1 out of 4, give or take, how are you guys getting 240 leads per month?
So it's a fair mix. And I would say because most of these leads are kind of warm from my book of business, if we segment out that piece, I would say the conversion's probably closer to like 35-40%.
Nice.
It can take time to close, but if it's a
No, I
warm
get it.
lead and they're in the market for a deal, I think we're converting it at a bit of a higher clip. But even so, that takes you down to what, 200, 180 leads. So it's a little bit of a mix. We've got great online reviews. We show up organically on Google searches. It's big in my market. I think in the New York market particularly, some of the rhythms of a deal might be that a consumer goes to their bank first, this big bank headquarters, and then one reason or another they want to look elsewhere. Either the bank said no because their guidelines are very strict and rigid, or the bank dropped the ball because their customer service wasn't up to snuff, or they want to just shop around and look around. So the next step is often just going and searching online. So we get a lot of traction, a lot of inbound stuff, whether it's Google, Yelp, Zillow, a good chunk. And then our realtor relationships are solid across the country and on both coasts. We do a really good job of nurturing them. And like you've taught, we milk our past database probably as good as possible. It wasn't as great as it was when I used to kind of be more of an owner operator. But the best thing for me right now is just I have more resources than I do business. So there's not a scenario where it's like, well, let's pivot and try this, and it's like, okay, we got to go hire 2 more people. We're trying to hire kind of ahead of our growth.
Yeah.
Which is hard and scary at times with big payrolls and stuff, but we can pivot and come up with new ideas. We just actually bought a list of I'm upstate now, right? Which is temporarily, I'm headquartered in Brooklyn, but I have a place 2 hours north in the Hudson Valley. It's a very right market up here, second homes. Pandemic pushed a lot of people to, buy second homes. And so being here, I said, okay, this is cool. It's a little bit slower paced, kind of in the country. There's some smaller banks here. I feel like we could make a dent pretty quickly as being a fast-paced New York mortgage brokerage. So we bought a list of realtor contacts up here and are pushing them through our CRM. We built a whole follow-up system, and I couldn't have done that while I was still originating 20, 30, 40 loans a month. So the resources are huge.
Yeah. So what would you say? So again, dude, you had just done a remarkable job of scaling this thing. And that's kind of the topic that we're talking about there is how to scale. And basically what I'm hearing you say is, just leveraging and I call it borrowing each other's talents.
Sure.
So what I hear you say is you're borrowing talents of people that work with you, their talent of being able to talk to the customer. And these days you used to do it, but now having them sell the deal, but you're still the lead generation guy. And then they borrow your amazing ability to generate the phone calls, make the phone calls ring. Like you borrow each other's talent. So I'm hearing you say that's really the way that you scaled up, and just continually doing that, even though scary sometimes, just to feel the fear and do it anyway. What would you say has been your biggest challenge to scaling up, like going from 10 loans a month to 90 loans a month? What's been your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think, so I really plugged the value of hiring inexperienced people. I went for the skill set over the experience. And that has, as much as I would never change that decision, that has been hard. These guys had no mortgage experience. They came from a tech company. I've had a pretty good staff of people with mortgage experience, but they're busy processing loans. For me to pull them away and be like, you need to train and you need to be a team lead is hard. That's going to impact our business. And we have loans coming in the door. And next thing you know, that's going to hurt our customer experience. And so I've had to wear a lot of hats. And the reality is that I'm the most knowledgeable person at my company as far as like how to process a loan and guidelines, because that's what I was. I was an owner operator. I knew it all. I like that, but at the same time, I don't want to have to be a guy who's hosting office hours, what we call them, to teach guidelines and things like that. The nice thing is the people I've hired that didn't have the business had that aptitude, and 7, 8, 10 months in, they're acquiring a ton of knowledge, and we're almost there where I don't have to be the guy where it's like, let's go to Scott. We're not sure, the answer on this. And the other main processors are busy right now or can't give an hour to work through a file. So it's a hard trade-off. I imagine if I step back and I didn't hire those guys that my best friend teed up for me, I probably wouldn't have done the scaling effort at all. There's probably someone out there who on their own says, I want to scale, and says, I'm going to find someone in the mortgage industry who has worked at a large company and built a sales team. And you can find those people out there. I probably could have, but I knew my strength and I knew my weakness. And I knew that if I didn't kind of leverage what my friend Adam had teed up for me, I would have gone just right back to like running my smaller shop. I knew myself. So I knew these were if I could convince these guys to come on board, it was okay that they didn't have the mortgage experience.
What kind of life difference does it make going from an income of 10 loans, whatever that income is, to 90 loans, which is, one would assume I know in scaling my own business up, it's not closing 90 isn't 9 times more profitable than 10, because you start adding on components, overhead. So it's not a linear curve on the income. But certainly I think everybody could agree going from 10 loans a month, and I'll let everybody insert their own numbers in, you may or may not want to share your personal income, but going from 10 loans a month to 90 loans a month, obviously a major difference in income. Any big changes because of that?
Yeah, resources. I've got a 6-month-old and I've got a 5-year-old, and I'll tell you right now, before the pandemic, mortgage business did well, right? As the pandemic hit, I guess it struggled a bit, but before we knew it, it was a business that, for better or worse, thrived because of the lower interest rates. And I had to pivot. Offices were closed, and I have a condo in Brooklyn, but I had a 4-year-old daughter who was stuck at home, and my wife works for herself. And I knew for me to drive this business forward and benefit from all the opportunities, I had to get out of town and find a place. And so we came upstate where we are now, and we found a house that was perfect for my work setup, big enough where I don't share a wall with my wife, who would be like, you're way too loud, you can't work from there. And here we go. So long story short, the house was listed on the market, and the agent that was listing it is a friend of ours. So we got to rent it for a little bit while it was vacant. And then she put it on the market when things opened up, and was like, it's going to sell. You got to go. And we were like, well, it's not time to go back to New York City yet. So we bought it. And we didn't buy it for the luxury. We bought it to have a big enough house for our nanny to come upstate and be here with us to watch my daughter, so I could work on the things I wanted to work on, and we could have that nice balance. So I really look at it that way. The resources to build your daily schedule and your work and your work balance and little things without having to worry too much about, can we do that kind of stuff.
So with going from 10 to 90 obviously makes a major difference in income. How about hours? Like how's the hours working? Like with is when you're closing 9 times more loan, are you working 9 times more hours? Like what does that look like?
No, so that's one of the cool things I wanted to talk about. And so part of the reason I chose to scale, part of my why, was that I love this business and I love this industry, and I didn't really want to work fewer hours, but I wanted to control which hours I worked. I wanted to work fewer mandatory hours around the day, right? So we all know mortgage originators, like you go on vacation, and if you don't have the right team behind you, you're fielding calls. And even if you're not fielding calls, your brain is consumed by who's fielding calls for you back at home. And so I have a 6-week-old daughter named Dover, who's lovely. I was wearing her on my chest earlier. And I was actually just telling my team, we just had a 40-person all hands monthly meeting. And my final message to them as a thank you was, when my daughter Navy was born 5 years ago, I was me and one other person, 2 other people. And as much as I wanted to take a really beautiful maternity leave and disconnect, I couldn't. And my wife wasn't thrilled, and we didn't love it, and we got through it, and it was okay. And this time around, I knew the team was in place, but we had a lot more loans, and I have a new hat, a new role, CEO and all that. And I was like, the team's in place, but I wonder what I'll do. I really want to break away, and I want to shut it down and not work. And lo and behold, I got a solid 2.5, 3 weeks of virtually no work. And it didn't skip a beat work. These new LOs handled all the files really well, and it was incredibly rewarding. And I was even able to ease back into my work schedule after those 3.5 weeks when I was pretty much offline. And it's an incredible gift. And I work a lot still because I want to, and I want to grow this thing, and I'm passionate about it, but I get to pick and choose when I work. And that's really the beauty of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people, you talk about ramping up the business, say, look, I'm already busy. It's like, no, you don't get it. Like it's, you don't do more of what you're doing. You do different set of activities.
Totally.
And that's exactly what you've been doing here. So, hey, we need to wrap this up here a little bit, dude. Dude, you're just an amazing guy. I could sit here and chat, and I'd like to talk more about, working remotely on 2 different, areas of the country, and obviously doing it very successfully. And dude, you're just like one of the most likable people I've ever met in my life. You're just a really super chill guy. But what's next, man? Like, we're like, do you, before we, pardon me, before we hit the record button, you and I were talking a little bit about like where the motivation comes. Like, once you start making a pretty good income, and you and I are both, I can't speak for you, but for me, it's more than I ever thought I'd like literally ever would make. And, we were talking a little bit about like, what motivates you now? Like, what makes you want to get out of bed now? And so what's next, man, is when you're at the upper, I don't know, probably you're literally probably at the upper 0.1% or higher, probably actually. When you're at that kind of level, like, what's next? And is there a motivation to go next? Or is this, I know you shared you're 42 years old. So you've got some good, you're like, according to the statistics, you haven't even hit your income maximum years yet. Like, you're still on the left side of the bell-shaped curve. Like, what motivates you to go even more, or are you wanting to do even less now? Like, where does that look like?
Yeah, so this is a great question. The motivation now is actually to build this new company into something that really like represents who I am, from even like an outward facing consumer perspective. And it's not because I think that will just automatically drive more business in and get us to close more loans, but it'll allow me to like really step into like who I am and what I want to put out in the world through my work. This Go Rascal name of our new company is goofy as heck, but we sat down, Dave and I, my new partner, and we worked with a branding agency, and it cost a lot of money. And a lot of people say you don't need brand in the mortgage industry, and that's fine. But I wanted to, again, when I hired him, I had to commit to like growing a business. He had just helped do one elsewhere. And so I was all in on that. And I wanted to make sure that when I grew this business, it was who I am and represented who I am. And so like a rascal, our branding is like around a little cute little dog, which, rascal, the word could mean mischief. And maybe a consumer is like, rascal, but we're on the more playful side of rascal. So there's a dog involved and loyalty and all those things. And it's also, I think that's kind of represents who I am, a little fun, a little goofy. I'm not going to be a guy wearing a suit and tie at a mahogany desk, selling a mortgage. I'm casual. Some people think I have kind of like a surfer mentality. I wish I lived in LA for a bunch of years. I do not surf. I'm a bit of a poser there, but that's what we're going to put forward. Super serious about our business and the customers when we're working with them, but also playful and fun and more relaxed. And I think by showing up to work every day and seeing that come to life with the people we're hiring and our efforts and everything like that's what I'm going for. And I know that, the success will hopefully be a byproduct of that. There's a ton of work involved. It won't just happen, but that's what motivates me. Building something like that really like speaks to me and who I am, day in, day out.
It's almost like you're a songwriter, and you write songs for you.
Mhm.
And if somebody else enjoys it, awesome. But I'm really doing it because I got this song in my head and I want to get it out. And you were talking a little earlier, again, before we hit the record button, and and you were saying, Carl, I just got more songs in me, which is just our language we talk about, that I got some stuff that I want to do. I got a book, so to speak, that I want to write. So, dude, I can't even imagine what this is going to look like, you know, another 7 years from now. But I'm really, you know, it's an honor to be a part and watch your journey. That it is, it's been absolutely remarkable, and you've been able to have this growth and maintain chill in your life, and you know, it's just nice guys win, you know, and it's just you're just a poster child for that. So dude, I just can't say enough
Thanks,
about
Carl.
you, and I
Thank you.
really appreciate you sharing the inspiration of others to just to know what's possible. Like the, I think, you know, it's like that. I mentioned this, I think, on the last podcast episode, where everybody thought like literally it was impossible to break the 4 minute mile. And then as soon as one person did it, like in the next 18 months, I think another 30 did, or something
Right.
like that. And so my hope in this episode is that people see, hey, this is possible. And when you meet Scott, or when you listen to him, you go, hey, this guy's obviously smart and he's got it going on, but he's just a guy. Like you're normal. You know, you're just a dude like that would sit on my front porch and drink a glass of tea, and that you're that.
Kombucha.
What's that?
Kombucha.
Yeah, kombucha even better. That's actually, I love kombucha. And that you're able to do 70, 80, 90 loans a month, just to let somebody know that's possible, might help them jump from that 4 or 5 loans they're at to even to get to like 10 or 15 or 20. Um, Hey, just real quick, somebody asked a question, and I want to cover this one thing, because it was a great question. So when you were Dan Laver is asking, when you went from a brand new LO, how did you go from brand new? Last question, Cole. I know we're running over time, but it's such great information. How did you go from brand new LO to closing 5 or 10 loans a month? What activity did you do to make that happen?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Let me think back. I was probably still in LA, although I really think I really consider my mortgage career starting like kind of post crash 2010. I had a bit of a past database from before, so maybe I got to go a little bit further back. Really, to me, it's shouting from the rooftop to just your own network of people what you do. I think being in the mortgage space, you look around, you're like, there are so many of us. Oh my God, how am I ever going to get business? Everyone, you know, but you're in the mortgage business. You're looking around, whether it's Facebook groups you're a part of or whatever. It's a lot of people out there who don't know any mortgage representatives, or maybe they bought a house a long time ago. And guess what, guys? A lot of transactions don't go well for consumers. That's probably the nature of any industry, but this is the only industry I've ever known. And there's a lot of experience, a lot of bad experiences going way back. And so your own local, you know, referral network, your friends, family, past jobs, joining a BNI chapter is an awesome move. I don't know, networking, any kind of local networking group. Put yourself out there. Get active in even Facebook groups and just share and support other people. And you know, that's how we get to know each other these days. And we log each other's memories in our head. And next thing you know, you have a referral for someone in a state across the country, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy wrote me a nice little comment there. Like, I'll check in, vet him a bit, and here you go. Here's the deal. And next thing you know, you've got a little thing going on. So I think with the internet, and I'm not even talking about social media, even though some would consider Facebook, but this is B2B, Facebook, social media I'm talking about. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, I think, out there for a beginning originator. Learn your chops though. Like you gotta know what you're talking about. Start as an LOA, or go to a company that has a really good, robust training program. So you can build a skill set and know, you know, how to talk the talk. The worst thing you want to do is, you know, tell everyone that you're a, you know, loan officer or whatever, but then, you know, not really be able to offer an outstanding experience for those referrals. So it takes time to get to learn the business. And find your right spot in this industry. There's broker channel, there's retail, there's middle of the pack kind of correspondent. They all work. They're channels that have been around as long as the mortgage industry have. Yes, the broker channel kind of went up and down, but all the other channels have been wildly successful. Find your spot. Jump around a bit if you need to, but once you find your spot, you'll know and you'll be well supported, and then you'll have the confidence to go out there and just ask for business from, you know, your cleaning person. Truly truly. You've got to put that, like Carl, you always say, flick the guy off your shoulder and, spark up a conversation. Listen, the mortgages and real estate and housing and rates, it's been the hottest conversation for like the past 10 years, really, outside of sports and maybe some other things. But everyone likes to talk about what rate and stuff. So, someone's a homeowner, spark up a conversation. You never know what it can lead to.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You're just asking for the business, right? And not being not thinking that everybody's going to think I'm uncool. If I ask them, hey, do you know if anybody's looking to buy, sell, or refinance a house? And if they say no, well, can I count on you to give me a call if you do? Because that's what I do is I help people buy, sell, and refinance this house. Can I count on you to, if you hear of somebody, can I count on you to give me a call? That's not uncool at all. And your friends would want to help you.
Mhm.
Right. And somehow we have it in our mind that, people's going to think we're weird or uncool or begging. I hear the old term. I see those ads on Facebook too, begging for the business. And I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
dude, that's just a horrible message to send to
totally.
people that, just simply whoever asks the most people is going to get the most results. And it's just no simpler than that. So Scott, dude, I really appreciate you, brother. You're just an awesome dude. Looking forward to hanging out again. I guess next time we're meeting is what, in San Antonio
Yeah,
here.
I'll be there.
In December. So looking forward to it. And dude, congratulations on your just well-deserved success, but it couldn't happen to a nice guy. And I'm just so proud of you and just so happy for the great results you're seeing.
Thank you, Carl. This
Thanks
was
for sharing.
great.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you, buddy. And so that's it. So thanks for hanging out with us here on the podcast. If you think somebody would benefit from it, we always appreciate if you forward and share this to people. And if you got some nuggets out of here, be sure to reach out and give Scott some love. And we always appreciate those reviews. It helps the algorithms to get the message out even more. So we always appreciate that. So thanks again. And we'll see you on the next episode of Loan Officer Freedom. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye. See you, Scott.